So I'm logged in here as a project manager. I'm going to play multiple roles in this product demonstration today. And as I've logged in, I've immediately logged into my dashboard homepage. So I can log in and immediately get real-time insight into the status of my services organization. In this example here, I'm looking at a services dashboard where I can get some real-time insight into what is the revenue of my services business by calendar year, such as what we've invoiced versus what we've expected, how much we've recognized to date from our revenue recognition module, what was our baseline revenue for comparison. Maybe I'm interested in my supply and demand of resources by role and where we're going to have some supply constraints and we might have to look externally or through our partners to fulfill that demand for our projects. As I scroll down, I can see some project information like projects by status, utilization information by resource, by role, some more specific project task information like task by status, as well as financial information related to my services business, such as my top projects by billing amount, average hours spent per project, or the total amount of invoice or how much we've invoiced this calendar year. And of course, we can modify, we can create new dashboards, edit existing dashboards and reports, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. So if I switch gears and look at another dashboard, maybe I'm interested in just the health of our projects as a project manager. And here I've switched gears to a project health dashboard, and I can see my projects by status. How many overdue projects do I have? What's my timesheets pending approval look like? What's my task by status? Overdue task by project, overdue task by individual or owner. How many issues do I have outstanding, risks, and my expenses pending approval as well. So this is an example of a delivered dashboard called Project Health. Looking at another dashboard, more tailored to financials or project accounting, here I can see my project margin as it relates to my project. Where are we getting the best bang for our buck? Where is the majority of our revenue falling with respect to project margin? What's our revenue summary look like? What's our estimated at completion look like based on our estimation of revenue for these projects? Directly from the revenue recognition module here, what's my revenue recognition amount look like? What's my deferred revenue? How much have I invoiced versus how much have we recognized? What's my revenue backlog look like? What's our bookings versus how much we recognized to date? Similarly, top projects by billing, as we saw from that previous dashboard component, time and expense billing forecast, how much we've invoiced in total. So as you can see here, real-time insight into the status of your services business, which can be tailored to your organizations and to individuals within the organization. So starting from my dashboard, let's switch gears now and look at how we manage those billable projects or non-billable projects for that matter within Krow. So I'm going to navigate to the My Projects tab now. And this would be the starting point for project managers, possibly consultants, just to see all of the projects that they are working on and the status of those projects and start managing the day-to-day activities as it relates to those projects. So here you can see all of my projects and the customers associated with those projects, start date, end date, percentage complete, project status, who's the owner, what's the burn rate for that project look like. I can view this in a Gantt view. I can also view this in a card view if I'd like, and I can start filtering that information. But then what I can do is start to drill down and manage that project immediately. But before I do that, what I'm going to make reference of is you can see here that we have associated this customer Acme with this client implementation project, which we're going to look at shortly. What I'm going to do first is I'm just going to click into this individual customer or account for those that are familiar with Salesforce. We're built native on the Salesforce platform. Even if you're not a Salesforce customer, you can use Krow in its entirety as well as accounts and contacts. So here I have accounts or customers. As I'm looking at this customer Acme, if you will, I can see everything, a 360-degree visibility of this customer, such as all of the contacts at this account. If you're a Salesforce customer, you'll get access to Salesforce CRM data, such as all of the opportunities for this particular account, the support cases that you might be working on. But now with Krow, I get that additional visibility into all of the projects, the services proposals, the services contracts that we're working on for this particular project, all right directly from the account or opportunity. So here what I'm going to do is, before we dive into a project, what I'm going to show is a we have a full services CPQ, or more specifically, the ability to create proposals, quotes, as well as contracts with respect to your projects or your services projects. So here I'm just going to click into a particular proposal. So here is where you can create proposals or estimates for a particular opportunity. You can create multiple versions of estimates or proposals until such time as the client has accepted that, and then you can automatically create projects and services contracts from those proposals. So here as an example, I have my proposal that I'm working on for this account, for this particular project, client implementation, and I can create proposal lines, and those proposal lines, if I click on View All, they might represent potential resources with hours that we've estimated for this particular project, which can translate into amount, both billable and cost amounts. I also have down here a fixed fee amount related to this particular proposal, equipment rental, if you will. And you can see I've marked that up by 25%. I've also marked up this subcontractor as well. So I can discount, I can mark up any lines in my proposal as well before I pass on that proposal to the customer. I also have an expense budget that I've recognized here in my proposal. So if I navigate back to my proposal, as I'm building my proposal lines, it will give me real-time calculations of what the margin looks like, the target margin, the margin amount, what the expected revenue and the expected or budgeted cost is as I build up that proposal. And what's really neat about this is that, of course, I don't have to do all of this manually. I could have had whether it be a templated project or a project that I've used before, and I can import in from a project as a starting point. I can even manually add product lines for those that are Salesforce customers or familiar with Salesforce, from product line items and product catalogs, so fixed fee products or even products representing roles or resources, if you will. So I can synchronize and add products. I can also even synchronize from opportunities. And furthermore, I can, as I generate this proposal or create this contract, I can also sync back to the project itself, so that if I've used a project as a starting point for my estimate, once the client has accepted that estimate, I can sync the project and turn that project to active based on my proposal that was accepted by the client. And then finally, as I mentioned, you can generate a proposal using our delivered integration with Conga, with pre-built templates that we deliver, where you can create your own templates, where you can create a fully branded and customized proposal or statement of work and generate that directly from our proposals. Once you've created that proposal and the client's accepted that proposal, then you can automatically create the project if you want to create a new project, and of course create what's called the services contract. And I've already created a services contract because the client's accepted this proposal, and it's down here, and I'm just going to click on it now. And now that I've navigated to the services contract, so here it's turned my proposal into actually contract line items specific to that project and created the appropriate project billing lines. So as an example, I have a fixed fee item in this client project. I have an expense budget. I have a time and expense line item because of time and expense project. What I've also added here, just for demonstration purposes, is that a contract can be made up of multiple projects, not only one project. So you might have a contract that is made up of multiple project elements or multiple projects, and they can all sum up to one contract. And of course, I can manage against that one contract. What's the contract amount versus how much we build, and what's our current margin to date on that contract element. And then furthermore, as you can see, if you remember from my proposal, I had a number of elements in it. I had a fixed fee component, which was that equipment. I have an expense item. I also had time and expense. I can have different revenue recognition templates per proposal line. So as an example, the time and expense is going to be recognized based on percentage complete of the project. The fixed fee element, maybe I want to recognize a different way, not percentage of complete, but maybe as it's billed, or another revenue recognition method that you create during creating the revenue recognition templates in Krow. And this is where you can manage change requests or addendums, where you might have started off with a time and expense project that you are billing on a monthly basis with a percentage of complete revenue recognition method, but there's an amendment to that contract, and I want to add in another element. But that element is going to be based on a retainer or an installment or a recurring billing basis with a different type of how you're going to recognize that. And that all can be summarized up into one contract. So multi-line item, multi-contract billing within one or multiple projects. So that is what proposals and services contracts constitute within Krow. So let's switch gears now. I've created my proposal. It was accepted by the client. We've created the project and the services contract, and now we're going to start managing that project. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate over to my projects, and I'm going to click into my client implementation project. So this is as a consultant or project manager, I can manage the day-to-day activities as it relates to this project. So here, as soon as I've entered this project, I can see all of my tasks that I'm working on. I can even open up this embedded analytic here. I can see, and this is completely configurable even down to the project level. I can see how we've calculated percentage complete of the project, where we are with respect to the completion of project hours, what's the actual and budget, so what's the burn of this project currently, as well what's the current margin rate of this particular project. So I can get immediate insight on where we are with this project without having to navigate away to a particular report. Furthermore, I have all of my tasks here. I can drag and drop. I can select multiple tasks to complete them, move them around, and so forth. Or what I can do is if I just click in on this particular task, I can start managing that task. So you can see I can have multiple resources on a particular task that I'm scheduling their hours across particular dates. I even have a hold checkbox here, so I haven't hard booked this resource on this particular task. I'm just holding them on this task, and we can see that on the resource planner as well. So I can start scheduling resources on tasks. I can collaborate using Chatter, my checklist items that you can see I have here as well. What I can even do is I can enter time on this task. I can manually enter time right here, putting in the duration that I worked on this particular task, or I can use my timer. You can see previous to this demonstration, I already started my timer. So I've already been working on this task, and I can pause that if I want to pause that, if I'm on break or lunch or working on another task, and then I can come back and stop that, and it's going to stop and save that time for me automatically, and it will show up on my timesheet later for that formal timesheet submission process, if relevant in your organization. So there's many ways to enter in time in Krow. You can enter it right on the task. You can enter it in your timesheet. You can enter it from a mobile device, of course, and that's not the only way, though. We have what's called a publisher action in Salesforce, so I've clicked on it. So wherever I am in the system, doesn't matter which page, where I am, I can just open up this action and enter time directly against a particular project or milestone or task that I'm working on, just by clicking on that little plus button here and opening up. Furthermore, if I just switch over to my demo email here in Gmail, and this supports both Gmail and Outlook, also with the integration with email, if you will, I can open this up and I can enter time right here as I'm collaborating or receiving an email or so forth from email, and I want to make sure that I reference the time that I maybe forgot or want to work against this particular task or project. I can do it right from here. This is also where you can automatically associate either outbound or inbound emails directly to a project or task or account and so forth within Krow. So many ways to get time into projects. So back to my project for a moment. I've looked at my embedded analytic. I've looked at my particular tasks. So now what I can do is I can start adding project notes as an example. What I can also do is I can click in on the project timeline, and here I can see a timeline of everything that's happened with this particular project, descending on what's happened most recently. So here I can see a task status has changed from completed to in progress, and I can open that up and see the details of who it was changed by, what was the old and new value, if you will. I can see total logged hours exceeded estimated hours for a task. I can see project health has changed. Project risk was added, project assignment was added, note was added, and so on. So everything that's happened with this project, I can get a real-time insight into directly from the project. And this is completely reportable, and or you can set up notifications against this as well. Of course, this being a project, we might want to look at the project Gantt chart. So I can navigate directly to the project Gantt chart. I can see all of my tasks here. I can add a number of different columns here into my Gantt that I wish. I can double click on it and open up that right-hand panel so I can schedule. I can even enter time right from the Gantt chart as well, add new tasks, and of course, I can just drag and drop on this Gantt as well and move out all of these tasks here, save that information, create baseline, and even export the Gantt to PDF. an image, Microsoft project. We can also import projects into Krow from Microsoft project as well. So that's the Gantt. I'm not going to save that. And then finally, as a project manager or a resource manager, I might be managing the resources on this project, such as placeholders. So what I can do now is I'm just going to access the resource plan. And now I'm looking at the resource plan still for this particular project that I'm looking at. And here you can see this is a version of the resource plan. We're going to see the resource planner for all resources shortly. But here for this project, I see I have resources on the project. I actually have Jane on it twice. She's playing the role of both a project director and a consultant. Might be different bill rates. I can see here the scheduled hours and so forth. I can actually see actual hours on a particular time frame as well, so I can compare scheduled versus actual. But here I have this placeholder here that I might want to replace, and I can just click on that placeholder, and it's going to bring me to a page where I can start reviewing resources. So immediately it's going to look and try to do a match of I'm looking for a consultant. Here are my consultants. It's going to show me what my required hours are for this role in this project, what the skills I'm looking for, and it's going to immediately, as you can see here, fill in some filter criteria already based on my search, such as I'm looking for a consultant. These are the skills that are required, and I can add additional filters, if you will. So what I can do immediately is, if I want to accept those default filters, I can choose one or both of the results, and I can compare those resources. So here now I can compare those resources and see additional information about those resources, such as their skills, proficiency, maybe their cost or bill rates, if that's important. This can be hidden for security reasons as well from certain or all users. And then I can go ahead and choose which one I might want to book and replace that placeholder on the project, which will also replace that placeholder on all tasks that placeholder was assigned as well. So that's a little bit about managing projects with Krow. So let's carry on. If my projects was kind of top-down project-centric, my work is what we call bottom-up task-centric, where as an individual, I can manage all of my tasks across all of the projects that I'm working on. Here I can see new tasks that have been created or assigned to me, tasks I'm currently working on, tasks I can consider priority work on next, tasks that are completed. And I can filter this by a number of different criteria, as you can see here. Maybe I want to look at tasks just for today, my personal tasks, my team tasks, filter by project. So here, maybe I want to only look at the client implementation project and filter that, and it's only going to show me those. I can then drag and drop as I'm looking at those tasks. And now, as we saw on the project page, from anywhere in the application where I'm looking at my projects or tasks, I can just click in on that task, and that right-hand panel opens for me where I can schedule, I can enter time, I can collaborate, and so forth for those particular tasks. So this is the bottom-up kind of managing all of the tasks across all of your projects and using all of those filters available to the user to filter their work and manage their work. And if I have the ability to do so, I can add a new task right from here as well. So carrying along, we've looked at managing projects, managing tasks. Now I'm going to switch gears and look at the resource planner for a moment. So here is where resource planners, executives, project managers can get real-time visibility into where all their resources are working on what projects, and if they're over-scheduled, under-scheduled, or appropriately scheduled based on your target schedules and utilization rules that you would set up in Krow. So here I can immediately see I've got some red here, some over-scheduled, some under-scheduled. Looks like I have one here that's properly scheduled based on this entire time frame. What I can do here is if I open up a particular resource, now I can see all of the projects that resource is working on here, and my resources are color-coded based on this one's soft booked, this one's booked, and again I can see actual here, so based on time entry as well. If you want to see the color coding, I can just open up, and these are completely configurable. You can create your own project assignment statuses. You can create your own color coding sequence so you can immediately see the visibility of that. Now, as I'm planning this time for these resources on this project, if I want to modify any of that time, I can just double click and modify that right down to the day, right? And of course, I can just also just drag and drop to add more time to that resource, to that particular project as well, as you can see here. If I don't want to modify that just on a particular time frame, maybe I want to modify the entire assignment, I can do that right from here as well. So I can maximize or estimate the project hours. I can put in a percentage effort, so 50% of that person's effort to a maximum of this many hours over this duration, and it will default in their work schedule pattern, which I can even override as well if I need to. So that's looking at the resource planner here. And of course, I'm looking at all of my resources by default, but I can use my filter on the left side here to further filter my resource planning results, whether it be by projects, by statuses, by accounts, by teams, roles, skills, regions, practice location, and so forth as I continue to review all of my resources. Here, what I can do as well is maybe I want to modify the default over under allocation and say, you know what, I just want to look at anyone that's over 150% allocated. I want to make sure is look. So here now I can see anyone that's under 150% allocated has become green now. Only those that are over 150% allocated are red. So I can modify that per my analysis and the requirement that I would like to look at as I'm reviewing my resources. And then finally, I'm looking at the scheduling, but maybe I want to look at availability, because that's what's most important to me, is not what they were scheduled, but how much availability did they have. You can see Alice, she was over scheduled. She's got no availability, but maybe these other resources have availability, and I can go ahead and look at that and start scheduling right from there as well based on availability. What I can also do, by the way, is I can actually drill down into right into the task level of what individuals are working on right from the planner as well. So I can see here that Amit is working on this integration setup task, and here's the scheduled hours. If I click in on that task, you can see that right-hand panel opens again, and I can modify it right from there, or I can just drag and drop and add more task scheduled time here. So this is, as opposed to what we looked at earlier, which is project level scheduling, now I can do task level scheduling, and I can keep them synchronized, by the way, so that task level scheduling is synced up to project level scheduling as well. And then finally, I can get some insight into utilization. So here we're in the week of October 22nd. So here you can see people have already started to enter their time. I can get a real-time insight into their utilization. And I'm looking at this in hours, but when I look at utilization, maybe I want to see this in percentages. So now I can see, just by clicking on this icon here, what the percentage utilization is. And if I drill down into this, I can actually see what projects constituted what hours and what utilization percentage, as you can see here. Okay. So that's the resource planner. Of course, so, now moving forward to the timesheet. Here, any time that I've entered in from any areas that we discussed earlier would default in here. I can, of course, enter in more time as needed, enter in my notes, add new lines, and continue to enter in that time against all of the projects that I'm working on, and then save, submit that. I can also copy from previous week. I can copy from my schedule as well directly into my timesheet. As we're managing projects, managing work, managing time, then of course you're going to want to create those billing events and invoice your clients. So now I'm going to go ahead and look at a particular invoice in Krow, and you might choose to invoice directly from Krow, or we can just make those billing information available to your financial system with a real-time financial integration, such as QuickBooks, Xero, NetSuite, Sage Intacct, Sage Financials, Accounting Seed, and so forth, where we can automatically send all of that invoice data or billing event data to your financial application. So here I'm looking at this invoice. I have some invoice time entries, expense items, fixed fee items. I can preview that, and then I can send that off through email. And as you can see here, we've got lots of configuration options. I can show a summary of the hours by resource. Starting on page 2, the end client might want a breakdown of all of the tasks that were worked on, including timesheet notes. Again, completely configurable. Here's my statement of expenses. So anything that you'd like to see on the invoice itself, we can configure that, and that can be different by project, by account, by organization as well. And once I've invoiced the client and I'm receiving that revenue, then I want to recognize that revenue, right? And it might be simple in your organization that you recognize the revenue as you're invoicing. But of course, with a revenue recognition module, you can officially recognize that revenue based on revenue recognition methods and templates that we deliver, such as by billing event, by percentage complete, or these two examples, and there might be many more. Equal payments over the duration of the project. So here I can see the system's calculated what percentage of complete the project is, what's the total revenue to date, how much we previously recognized, and based on those rules, how much we currently have to recognize. If I have the ability to do so, I can override that amount that's calculated, but then I can just choose one or all, and then create those transactions, which is going to create those revenue recognition transactions for me. And then finally, I can report on this information, report on my services business, and see where we need to improve our services business and where there might be some leakage with respect to revenue or utilization, where you can take a course correct based on all of the information that's being tracked within Krow. So if I just switch gears now, we looked at dashboards when we started the demo today, but if I switch gears and look at some reports now. Here's one called project forecasting. So with our project revenue forecasting module, now I can forecast my project revenue out as far as the information exists in the system and compare that against actual. And whether that be actual invoiced, or in the case that you might not be using our invoicing tool, you can base that off of actual based on time, billable time approved. Milestone payments approved or completed, and so forth. But then I can forecast all of that revenue, and our forecasting engine is forecasting any projects that you wish, including even pipeline projects from an opportunity, and it's forecasting all types of revenue. We have a number of different billing types that we support, whether it be fixed fee, time and expense, retainers, installment, recurring, milestone payments. All of that information and all of that forecasting of revenue is taken into consideration here when we're reporting on this in this example of project forecasting. Another report I'll look at, supply and demand by role. So here we can look at what is the demand based on where I've scheduled resources, including even placeholders. Again, may include pipeline projects, and look at the demand, or excuse me, the supply, which is how many resources do we have, and based on their work schedule and target availability, and what they're currently scheduled on, what's my availability look like? And you can see if I look back at August and look down here to the consultant role, you can see I actually have -8 hours in August for consultant, meaning that demand is larger than the current supply available to us. So that's an example of the supply and demand by role. We might want to look at it from an FTE or an actual resource level. So here now, instead of by hours, I can just see by resource what my available resources are by month, by role. How many resources do we have available based on all of the scheduled hours, both current and forecasted, that's available to us. And then finally, here's an example of resource utilization by month. And maybe I just want to turn off that report for a moment. And now a simple report, but I'm in this example, I'm viewing all of my resources, what their billable and total hours utilization is by month, again, forecasted out as far as in the future as utilization information exists. And of course, I might want to, as I showed earlier, might want to generate a dashboard or a graph related to this, and I have flexibility to change that report. I might want to see it in a different fashion, as you can see here, and I can modify that report as I see fit as well. So with that, hopefully everyone saw the power of Krow Professional Services Automation, all the way from managing your accounts and proposals and quotes to creating services contracts, creating projects, managing those projects, managing those tasks, entering in time, managing resources and resource planning through to generate billing events, managing revenue recognition, all the way to dashboards and reports and analyzing and managing your services business. So thanks everyone for attending the demonstration today. I hope to speak with you soon.